In the Democratic Republic of Congo, hundreds protest outside the top court. The demonstrators are supporters of Felix Tshisekedi, the announced winner of the presidential election. The Constitutional Court is to rule on a challenge to the result. The runner-up, Martin Fayulu, launched that appeal, claiming there was fraud and that he, in fact, is the winner. The African Union, France, and others have urged a suspension of the results. I'm joined now by Quartz Africa editor Yinka Adegoke from New York. Yinka, thanks so much for joining us. There are still no final results from this election, as we mentioned. The Constitutional Court still not made a ruling on challenges to the results. What do you make of all this uncertainty?
Well, it's a bit of a shame because the Democratic Republic of Congo has, in 60 years, never had a democratic transfer of power in its history since independence. And it's quite obvious that from all the reports we're getting, from the reports my colleagues in other media are getting, these results that were announced by the Electoral Commission were not what the Congolese people voted for. And it is no surprise that the supporters of the declared winner, Tshisekedi, Felix Tshisekedi, are out there celebrating. But for the majority of people, these numbers are not real, and therefore the idea of him being the next president, rubs people up the wrong way and will leave many in the international community very concerned.
And speaking of the international community, the African Union, in a very unusual move. They called for a delay in the final results. They're saying it will send a delegation to Congo. Realistically, how much influence will the Union and these other outside entities have?
This is one that I think we all have to watch very closely, and almost with bated breath, because this isn't something we've seen before. Typically, the African Union has been almost a band of brothers, if you will, mainly because most of the leaders are men. But they tend to look after one another. This is the first time that the African Union has kind of, almost done the right thing and said, well, these results aren't what the people voted for. And I think it's because, if you really think about it, it's a really obvious manipulation of the voting numbers. And for the African Union itself to have credibility, they needed to back up numbers that have been verified by the Catholic Church in Congo, by other independent sources, as well, obviously, from the opposition camps as well. And this is it's an unusual situation. We'll see if the Congolese government takes notice of the African Union, but it's dangerous for them not to, because what it also means is that if the African Union members, all more than 50 members stick together, it's an awkward situation for any future Congolese government to proceed, because you're saying that your neighbors, you remember the country is right in the center of Africa. If you're saying your neighbors don't recognize your government as being a legitimate government, that's a very awkward situation.
Yinka, really quickly, I think we have less than a minute left. An opposition candidate was announced to be the winner, but the ruling party won a majority of the parliament. I think we need to emphasize that. So who will really be calling the shots in this government?
Well, now you kind of raise the $64 million question, as they say, to use a cliche. I mean, the invisible hand of Joseph Kabila, the current president, in this entire situation, it's almost doesn't seem to. I think that's the factor that we haven't fixed yet. The reason that these results were manipulated in the first place, it would seem, is so Kabila could still have some say, some control, and his legacy is protected after he leaves power. It's taken so long to leave in the first place that he clearly wants to have control of certain sections of the government.
Yinka, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you there. A lot to talk about, so certainly thank you so much for your time. Yinka